Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just told a budget committee hearing that she fights oligarchy every single day, completely unaware that Vice President J.D. Vance was about to dismantle her working-class image using a luxury hotel bill and elementary school math. 6 hours after stepping off a Bombardier Challenger private jet that costs $15,000 an hour, she didn't know the vice president had spent the weekend reading her FEC filings. All of them, line by line, hotel by hotel, sushi dinner by sushi dinner. The way he used to read VC balance sheets in Silicon Valley, following every dollar until it stopped moving. When she finished her attack on billionaire-funded politicians, Vance didn't argue. He opened a manila folder, thin, no labels, no theater, and read a number out loud, $53,500. Then he asked, "Do you know how many $27 donations that is, Representative?" She did not smash that like button, because you were about to watch the vice president dismantle a $53,000 luxury hotel bill using nothing but a congresswoman's own campaign filings and elementary school math. May 28, 2025. Room 608 of the Dirksen Senate Office Building. The Senate Budget Committee had convened a hearing on campaign finance transparency in the social media age. The kind of hearing title that sounds like a graduate seminar but was really an excuse to get the most famous small-dollar fundraiser in American politics on camera. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had been invited as an expert witness, not as a member of the committee. She was House, not Senate. But as a pioneer, she had raised more money in $27 increments than any congressional candidate in history. She had turned Instagram stories into fundraising engines. She had made chip in $27 for the movement, a cultural phrase. The committee wanted to hear how she did it. Vice President J.D. Vance presided from the chair, a constitutional formality. He was expected to sit, gavel, and stay out of the way. AOC arrived the way AOC always arrived, not walking into a room, but occupying it, the way a color occupies a canvas. Red lipstick, white blazer, the posture of a woman who had been performing for cameras since before most of the senators on the committee had figured out how to unmute themselves on Zoom. She sat at the witness table and adjusted her microphone, not because it needed adjusting, but because adjusting a microphone is the political equivalent of a boxer touching gloves. She looked at the committee, she looked at the gallery, then she looked up at the presiding officer's chair, where Vance sat with a manila folder on the desk in front of him, and she decided, in a calculation that took approximately 2 seconds and would cost her approximately 2 years of credibility, to go off script. "Mr. Vice President," she said it like a dare. "Before I discuss small-dollar fundraising, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the oligarch in the chair." The committee room shifted. Budget hearings don't usually start with a House member attacking the presiding officer. Budget hearings usually start with opening statements that could be used as sleep aids. You sit in that chair because a tech billionaire, Peter Thiel, decided you'd be useful. You're not here because of small-dollar donors. You're not here because the people of Ohio believed in some grassroots movement. You're here because one man wrote a check. One man picked you out of a venture capital office and said, "This one will do." So before this committee lectures anyone on campaign finance transparency, she paused, looked directly at the C-SPAN camera, timing the beat the way she timed every beat. Because Ocasio-Cortez didn't speak so much as perform, and every performance needed a breath before the punchline. Maybe start with the man in the chair. She wasn't finished. She was never finished after one attack. The AOC method was volume 3 punches, where one would do, because the audience at home only catches the clip, and more punches means more clips. You want to talk about oligarchy? You are the oligarchy. You went from writing about poverty to serving the richest administration in American history. You don't fight oligarchy, you married into it. You took Thiel's money, you took Trump's ticket, and you sold the poverty story to the highest bidder. She pointed at Vance, not with one finger, with her whole hand. A gesture she perfected on Instagram Live, the open palm point that looks less accusatory on camera than a single finger. And now you sit in that chair and preside over a hearing about campaign finance like a fox teaching a seminar on henhouse security. She paused for effect. She was good at pauses. Not Vance pauses, which were silences that weighed, but AOC pauses, which were breaths that built. You know what I think about when I see you in that chair? I think about the kid in your book. The kid from Middletown. The kid who ate at McDonald's and wore Goodwill suits. And I think, where did that kid go? Because he's not in that chair. Peter Thiel is in that chair. Silicon Valley is in that chair. The Middletown kid is just the origin story they use to sell the product, the gallery murmured. The murmur had the specific frequency of a room that's watching someone take a risk and doesn't know yet whether it will pay off. AOC's aide, a young woman with a tablet, the kind of aide who live-tweeted hearings before they were even over, was already typing. The first tweet was probably already drafted. AOC just called VP Vance, a fox, teaching a seminar on henhouse security. On the presiding officer's dais, Vance did something unusual. He smiled. Not broadly, not the political smile that says, "I'm above this," a small, specific smile. The smile of a man who had just heard his opponent volunteer the exact opening he'd been hoping for. Because AOC had done two things in her attack that she didn't realize were gifts. First, she brought up money. His money, Thiel's money, oligarch money. She'd opened the door to financial transparency, and once that door is open, it swings both ways. Second, she mentioned Middletown. She mentioned the kid. And she couldn't know, that the kid was still there. The kid was always there. The kid with the McDonald's water cup and the Goodwill suit and the mother on the bathroom floor. The kid didn't leave. The kid just learned to read balance sheets. He waited until she was finished. He waited 3 seconds after that. Then he opened the manila folder. Representative Ocasio-Cortez, Vance said. His voice the same Midwest-level tone it always was. Not loud, not quiet. Calibrated to the exact volume that makes people lean in rather than sit back. Thank you for that. I appreciate the energy. And I want to address your point about oligarchy because I think it's important. He looked at the folder, then at her. In fact, I'd like to talk about your relationship with oligarchy in some detail. Specifically, your 2025 Fighting Oligarchy tour with Senator Sanders, 34 rallies, 20 states, 300,000 attendees. Very impressive. A genuine political achievement. He turned a page. I just have some questions about how you got there. AOC's posture didn't change. She was a professional at this. At the moment between an attack and a counterattack, the moment where amateurs tense up and professionals stay loose, she stayed loose. She didn't know what was in the folder. Your 2025 FEC filings, which are public record, Representative, as I'm sure you know, show that you and Senator Sanders traveled to your Fighting Oligarchy rallies by private jet. He read from the page. Senator Sanders' campaign paid $550,000 to private jet companies in 2025. Ventura Air Services, Jet, Cirrus Aviation. The primary aircraft used was a Bombardier Challenger, which according to Ventura's own website, features one of the widest cabins of any business jet available today. He looked up. In April 2025, Fox News obtained photographs of you and Senator Sanders boarding that jet at Meadows Field Airport in Bakersfield, California, and exiting it in Sacramento that same evening, en route to a Fighting Oligarchy rally. He set the page down. A Bombardier Challenger costs approximately $15,000 per flight hour to charter. You flew it to tell working people to fight the rich. He paused, not for drama, or not only for drama, for contrast, because the next sentence was the one he'd been holding. In 2023, you said, and I'm quoting from your official social media, Representative. For real, how many private jets do these CEOs need? It is insatiable. It is unacceptable. He looked up from the page. Those are your words. 2023. About CEOs and private jets. Insatiable. Unacceptable. He set the page down. 2 years later, you boarded the same kind of jet you called insatiable and flew it to tell people to fight the people who fly those jets. That's not hypocrisy, Representative. Hypocrisy is saying one thing and doing another. This is something more specific. This is saying one thing, recording yourself saying it, posting it for 36 million followers, and then doing the exact opposite, and filing it as a campaign expense. He let that land, then offered the contrast, not as a boast, but as a fact. The way Vance offered all personal details not performed, just present. Let me be honest about something. When I ran for Senate in Ohio in 2022, I drove a rental car, a Chevy Malibu from Enterprise. It was gray. I remember the color because I spent 247 hours in that car over 4 months. I know because Enterprise charges by the hour, and I kept the receipts. I drove it from Columbus to Cleveland to Cincinnati to Middletown and back, sometimes twice in a day. I ate gas station sandwiches in the front seat, the kind wrapped in cellophane that you hope were made this morning but suspect were made yesterday. I once did a radio interview parked in a Sheetz parking lot in Lancaster, Ohio, because the Sheetz had free Wi-Fi, and the campaign couldn't afford a mobile hotspot. He paused. The Sheetz parking lot smelled like gasoline and hot dogs. The Wi-Fi dropped twice during the interview. I was wearing khakis from Target and a shirt that needed ironing, and I won the race. He looked at AOC. You flew to fight oligarchy on a jet with the widest cabin in business aviation. I fought for a Senate seat from the parking lot of a gas station. And I'm supposed to be the oligarch in this room? AOC's jaw tightened. A small movement, almost invisible, but the kind of movement that people who watched her for years recognized. The jaw tightened when the attack landed somewhere she hadn't prepared for. She prepared for Teal. She I'd prepared for you married rich. She had not prepared for a Chevy Malibu. Those were campaign logistics, she began. Stop one, Vance said, turning the page. Not interrupting, just moving forward the way a current moves forward. Not angrily, not aggressively, just inevitably. Let's talk about where you slept. Your 2025 FEC filings report $53,500 in hotel spending. Vance read the number the way an accountant reads numbers, flat, precise, almost bored. The boredom was the weapon. Numbers delivered with excitement sound like accusations. Numbers delivered with boredom sound like facts. I'm going to read some of the hotels. Not all, we'd be here all day, but enough to establish a pattern. He ran his finger down the page. The Langham Huntington, Pasadena, California, 5-star resort. The Vidara Hotel and Spa, Las Vegas, 4-star connected to the Bellagio. The Lansdowne Resort and Spa, rural Virginia. The Asher Adams Hotel, Salt Lake City, $300 for that stay. The Leo Kent Hotel, Tucson, boutique high-rise, $365.76. Hotel El Convento, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the Hyatt Grand Central in Manhattan, which, Representative, is located approximately 7 miles from your apartment. He set the page down. You spent $3,000 on a hotel 7 miles from where you live. The gallery exhaled. Not a laugh, not a gasp, the sound between the two. The sound of people doing the math in their heads and not liking the answer. $53,500 in 1 year. Vance looked at AOC, $53,500. Do you know what the median household income in your district is, Representative? AOC didn't answer. Her face was set. The face she used on cable news. The face that said, I'm listening and I'll respond when I am ready. But her hands told a different story. Her right hand, which had been resting on the table, was now in her lap. Hands go to laps when they need to hide. I looked it up. The median household income in New York's 14th Congressional District is approximately $52,000. Your hotel bill for 1 year, just hotels, not flights, not meals, just the places you slept, was $1,500 more than what your average constituent makes in an entire year. He let the number sit. $53,500 versus $52,000. The gap was $1,500. The gap was nothing, and the gap was everything. Your constituents work 50 weeks a year, 50 weeks of subway rides and double shifts, and missed dinners and alarm clocks at 5:00 a.m. 50 weeks. And at the end of those 50 weeks, they've earned $1,500 less than you spent on hotels while telling them to fight the oligarchy. AOC leaned forward. Campaign travel is a legitimate expense. Vance finished nodding. You rewrite, it is. And the Langham Huntington is a legitimate hotel. It's also a 5-star resort with a Japanese garden and a spa menu that costs more than a day's wages for a home health aide in the Bronx. He turned the page. Let's talk about what you ate. Let me be honest about something. The committee room was learning the rhythm. Every let me be honest about something meant the blade was coming out. The committee members, Republican and Democrat, had stopped checking phones. The aides had stopped typing. The room had the specific silence of people who are watching someone build a case the way a mason builds a wall brick by brick, level by level, no wasted motion. When I was 17, my idea of eating out was the McDonald's dollar menu. Not because I liked it, because $3 was the budget. Vance's voice didn't change, didn't soften into pity, didn't harden into anger, just stated the way you state a fact about the weather. I would sit in a booth at the McDonald's on Verity Parkway in Middletown with a McChicken and a water cup. Water cups are free. That mattered. And I would look at the menu above the counter, the pictures of the Big Macs and the Quarter Pounders with cheese lit up like stained glass, and I would think, maybe someday. He looked at AOC. Your 2025 FEC filings show expenditures at a sushi restaurant in New York City with a $150 course tasting menu. A seafood restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip, a restaurant in San Juan where the cocktails exceed $20 each. In Puerto Rico alone, between June and September 2025, your campaign spent $10,743.13 on meals and catering. He set the page down. Do you know what $150 buys in your district, Representative? Groceries for 2 weeks for a family. 2 weeks of rice and beans and chicken and whatever fruit is on sale. 2 weeks of packing lunches because school lunch costs money too. 2 weeks. He tapped the folder. You spent it on 14 courses of sushi, and then went to a rally and told your constituents that the rich are squeezing them. You're right, the rich are squeezing them. You're just leaving out the part where you ate 14 courses on their $27. AOC's mouth opened. The beginning of a sentence. Those are standard campaign. But the sentence stopped, not because Vance cut her off, because she heard it. She heard how standard campaign expenditure would sound after a 17-year-old McDonald's water cup. She heard the clip that would be made her voice saying standard campaign expenditure spliced against his voice saying water cups are free, and that mattered. And she closed her mouth. The sentence died at standard campaign. It was the first sentence she killed in this hearing. It would not be the last. Vance turned the page. The folder was getting thinner, not because it had started thick, but because each page removed was a layer removed, and each layer brought the committee room closer to whatever was underneath. August 2025, San Juan, Puerto Rico. You gave a speech about gentrification, about working families being priced out of their own neighborhoods, about the displacement of communities that had lived in those neighborhoods for generations. He nodded. Good speech. I mean that. The gentrification problem in San Juan is real, and you spoke about it with genuine feeling. He paused. The praise was the setup. The committee room knew it by now. The same week, the same trip, you were photographed in a VIP luxury suite at a Bad Bunny concert at the Coliseo de Puerto Rico, dancing in box seats. The campaign FEC filing shows $23,712.62 in venue rental charges at the same arena. 2 separate payments, $16,725 on June 24th and $6,987.62 on August 25th. He looked at AOC. You told the people of San Juan that they were being squeezed out of their neighborhoods, then you danced in a VIP suite at a concert arena where your campaign had spent $23,000 in the same city in the same week. Vance shook his head. Not dramatically, the slow, almost sad headshake that was his signature, the headshake of a man who wasn't angry at the hypocrisy, but puzzled by it, the way an engineer is puzzled by a bridge that shouldn't have collapsed. Additionally, your campaign paid $9,440 to the Hotel Palacio Provincial in San Juan. The total Puerto Rico spending for that quarter, 3 months, was approximately $50,000. $50,000 in a place where you were telling people that the rich were taking their homes. He paused, looked at his hands, then back at AOC. Let me tell you what gentrification looks like from the inside, Representative, because I've seen it. Not in San Juan, in Middletown. When the steel mills closed, the houses went cheap, and when the houses went cheap, the developers came. Not the big developers, the small ones. The ones who buy a block of houses for $30,000 each, and flip them for $120,000, and price out the families who lived there for 3 generations. I watched it happen on my grandmother's street, Mama's neighbors. People who barbecued with her, who watched me grow up, who called the police the times my mother's boyfriends got loud. They got priced out one by one, like teeth falling out of a smile. He looked at AOC. "I know what gentrification feels like. It feels like watching your neighborhood become someone else's investment property, and I would never, never give a speech about that pain and then go dance in a VIP suite in the same city in the same week. Because the people you were speaking for, they can't afford the VIP suite. They can't afford the regular seats. Some of them can't afford the bus to the arena, and you danced." He leaned back. "That's not fighting for the working class, Representative. That's visiting the working class between concert tickets." AOC's aide was no longer typing. The tablet sat dark on her lap. In Washington, a dark tablet during a hearing is a white flag. It means the aide has decided that nothing happening in this room should be live tweeted because everything happening in this room is going to end up in an opposition research file. AOC herself had shifted in her chair, not dramatically, but her weight was different. She had started the hearing leaning forward, the posture of attack. Now she was leaning back. The posture had changed the way a tide changes slowly, imperceptibly, until you realize the water has moved 6 feet and you re-standing on dry sand. "And while we were on the subject of your travel," Vance added, almost as an aside, the almost doing the work of a knife disguised as a footnote. "The administration's office has confirmed that you under investigation for employing an unverified worker and for hosting seminars on how to evade enforcement. I'll let that investigation play out, but I'll note that the Constitution you cited in your response, the one you told Mr. Homan to read, also contains Article 1, which defines the duties of a member of Congress. Obstruction is not among them." He turned the page. "Last page. One more stop, Representative, and I want to be careful with this one." The committee room felt the shift. Not in Vance's voice. His voice hadn't changed once in 20 minutes. The shift was in the air. The shift was the feeling of a room that senses the final act approaching. In March 2026, the National Legal and Policy Center filed an FEC complaint alleging that your campaign paid $18,725 to Dr. Brian W. Boyle. Vance read the name carefully, respectfully, the way you read a name when you are about to discuss something sensitive. 3 payments. March 10, 2025, $11,550. May 15, $2,800. October 1st, $4,375. Total $18,725. All 3 payments were reported on your FEC filings as leadership training and consulting. He looked up. Dr. Boyle is an interventional medical specialist. He is described in medical literature as a leading authority on specialized alternative therapy. He does not, according to his website, his professional profiles, or any public source, advertise leadership training or consulting services to political campaigns. Vance set the page down, and here his voice changed for the first time. Not louder, not harder, softer, deliberately, visibly softer. The way you soften your voice when you are about to say something that could hurt if handled wrong. "I want to be clear about something. I am not making this about mental health. Everyone, every single person in this room, in this country, deserves access to wellness support. My mother needed it. She didn't always get it. Millions of Americans need it and can't afford it. Mental health is not a punchline. It is not a weapon. I will not use it as one." He paused. Let the protection land. Let the room hear that he meant it. The issue is not Dr. Boyle. The issue is not therapy. The issue is the line on the FEC filing that says leadership training and consulting. Because if these payments were for personal medical services, which is what the complaint alleges, then they were personal expenses. And personal expenses cannot legally be paid with campaign funds. And filing them as consulting when they were something else is not a scheduling error. It's a misrepresentation on a federal filing. He looked at AOC, your donors, your $27 donors, the ones you built an entire political identity around, gave you money to fight for them, not to pay for services filed under a false description. They gave you $27 because they believed in $27 was going to the fight. Was it? AOC opened her mouth. The payments were for legitimate campaign. The sentence died. She heard it dying. The room heard it dying. Because legitimate campaign consulting was the exact phrase that the FEC filing used, and the FEC complaint was specifically alleging that the phrase was false. And repeating a phrase that S under investigation for being false doesn't sound like a defense, it sounds like doubling down. She tried again. Dr. Boyle provided services that were dead, because finishing that sentence meant either confirming the services were medical, proving the FEC filing was mislabeled, or claiming they were consulting, which Dr. Boyle's own professional profile contradicted. She tried a third time. I've been fully cooperative with, and this one, she stopped herself. Because cooperative with the investigation is the phrase people use when they've already hired a lawyer. 3 sentences, 3 deaths. The AOC rapid fire, the machine gun delivery that dominated cable news panels and Twitter threads and Instagram stories, the verbal velocity that overwhelmed opponents by sheer volume, had jammed. Not because Vance had silenced her, because the math had silenced her. Her own numbers, her own filings, her own receipts. Vance closed the folder, set it aside, folded his hands on the desk the way he folded them when the data was done. And the person was about to speak. Representative, I have one question. The committee room recognized the phrase from prior hearings. One question from Vance was never actually one question. It was a question that contained every other question. The way a seed contains a tree. Your 2025 FEC filings show the following. He didn't read from the folder was closed. He de-memorized it. The numbers came from memory, the way a man who spent years in venture capital memorizes numbers, not by effort, by habit. $53,500 in luxury and boutique hotels, $18,725 to a medical specialist filed as consulting. Your estimated share of private jet costs with Senator Sanders, conservatively calculated at $80,000 based on per-seat allocation across shared flights. Approximately $50,000 in Puerto Rico, across 1 quarter. Hotels, meals, venue rentals, that's roughly $200,000 in lifestyle spending in a single year, filed as campaign expenses. He paused. The number sat in the room, $200,000, and the room sat with it. Your average small dollar donor gives $27. He looked at AOC. How many $27 donations does it take to pay for one night at the Langham Huntington in Pasadena? Silence. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. AOC didn't move. Her face was the cable news face, composed, ready. The face of a woman who had an answer for everything. But she didn't have an answer for arithmetic. You can't spin arithmetic. You can Instagram arithmetic. Arithmetic doesn't care how many followers you have. 4 seconds. 5. 6. The committee room counted the way people always count Vance silences. Not with watches, with heartbeats. Each second a heartbeat longer than the last. 7. 8. AOC's right hand moved to her water glass. Not to drink, to hold. The glass became an anchor. A thing to touch that wasn't a question she couldn't answer. Her fingers wrapped around the glass the way a person grips a railing when the floor shifts. Not because the railing helps, but because holding something is better than holding nothing. 9, 10. Her aide's tablet was still dark. The tablet had been dark since Puerto Rico. In the gallery, a reporter from the Hill was counting the seconds on her phone's stopwatch. She would later tweet the exact count, 10.3 seconds. Longest silence I've ever timed in a congressional hearing. Vance nodded. I'll do the math for you. His voice was quiet. Not mocking, not triumphant. Quiet the way a teacher is quiet when a student can't answer, and the teacher knows that embarrassment teaches more than repetition. One night at the Langham Huntington costs approximately $4,000 based on your campaign's filing. At $27 per donation, that S 148 donors, 148 working Americans. 148 people who opened their phones, went to Act Blue, typed in their credit card numbers they know by heart because they typed them for rent and groceries and electric bills and school pictures, and gave $27 because they believed it was going to the fight. He let 148 sit in the room, 148 people, one night, one hotel, for a woman who tells those same 148 people to fight the oligarchy. Beat the little guy is the $27 donor, Representative. Vance's voice was almost a whisper now, the kind of whisper that microphones amplify into something louder than shouting. And you spent their $27 on a hotel they can't afford to visit. AOC sat at the witness table, still. The stillness was new. She was not a still person. She was a person of motion, of gesture, of rapid-fire speech and Instagram stories and clapbacks and viral moments. Stillness was not her instrument, but the math had taken away the other instruments, the way a power outage takes away the lights. And what was left was a woman sitting in a chair with her own FEC filings on the table in front of her, and 148 donors behind every hotel receipt. Vance stood, straightened his tie. Not because it was crooked, but because standing and straightening are the motions of a man who is finished. You came here to talk about small-dollar fundraising, Representative. I think we've covered it. He looked at the committee, then at AOC, then at the gallery. The $27 donor deserves to know where their $27 went. Now they know. 5-star hotels, 14-course sushi, VIP concert suites, private jets, and a medical specialist filed as a consultant. He picked up the folder. Then, done. I drove a gray Chevy Malibu from Enterprise. $247 a week. Gas station sandwiches. Sheetz parking lot Wi-Fi. And I won a Senate seat. He looked at AOC one last time. You spent $200,000 of other people's money fighting oligarchy from the inside of oligarchy, and you lost the only thing that mattered. He paused. Their trust. He sat down, gave the hearing into recess. The gavel hit once, clean, sharp, final. And the sound of it echoed through room 608 the way math echoes precisely, completely, with no room for interpretation. The first clip didn't need editing. How many $27 donations does it take to pay for one night at the Langham Huntington? Followed by 10 seconds of silence. Followed by 148 people, one night, one hotel. That was the clip. 53 seconds. It hit Twitter, then TikTok, then Instagram, then the places where clips go when they stop being clips and start being cultural events. 22 million views in 8 hours. Not because it was mean, not because it was funny, because it was math. And math is the one thing the internet can argue with. People tried. Campaign travel is normal. Every candidate stays at hotels. This is standard practice. And the responses were always the same. 148 people. $27. One night. Do the math. 148 became a number. Not just a number, a unit of measurement. How many 148s is that? People started asking about every campaign expenditure. A PAC spent $50,000 on a fundraising dinner? That's 1,852 people who gave $27. A senator flew first class? How many 148s? The number had escaped the hearing room and become a tool. A tool that anyone with a phone calculator could use to measure the distance between a politician's words and their FEC filings. The number crossed party lines. A Democratic strategist went on MSNBC and said, reluctantly, visibly reluctantly, the way a dentist tells a patient they need a root canal. The 148 number is devastating because it's not an opinion, it's division. You can fact-check division. A Republican strategist on Fox responded, you don't need to fact-check it, you just need a calculator and a conscience. Within 48 hours, someone built a website, 148donors.com. You entered any campaign expenditure, and it told you how many $27 donors it took to pay for it. The site crashed twice from traffic. By the third day, it had been used 4.3 million times. The most calculated item? $35,000. Met Gala ticket equals 1,296 donors. The second most calculated? $15,000 per hour private jet equals 556 donors per hour. The third? $150 sushi dinner equals 5.6 donors. That last one, the 5.6, became its own meme, because you can't have 0.6 of a person, and the fraction was the cruelty. Someone's $27 didn't even cover the full dinner, it covered the appetizer. The Chevy Malibu went viral separately. Not the story, the actual car. Enterprise Rent-A-Car's social media team posted, we don't usually comment on politics, but yes, we do rent gray Chevy Malibus, $247 per week. The post got 4 million likes. Someone found the exact Sheetz location in Lancaster, Ohio, where Vance had done the radio interview, and posted a photo. The Sheetz franchise owner put up a sign, free Wi-Fi, good enough for a future vice president. The sign became a pilgrimage site for conservative media. Within a week, 3 other Sheetz locations had copied the sign, and Enterprise had started a Malibu-class promotion, their cheapest rental tier rebranded with a wink. The $150 sushi versus 2 weeks of groceries comparison spawned a cottage industry of budget breakdowns. A home economics teacher in Detroit made a TikTok showing exactly what $150 buys at a grocery store in the Bronx. 17 minutes of footage, item by item, bag by bag. It ended with the teacher holding a receipt and saying, "That's 2 weeks for a family of 3, or 14 courses for 1. The video got 31 million views and was shared by Vance's official account. Legal consequences. The FEC fast-tracked the complaint on the Dr. Boyle payments. AOC's campaign retained outside legal counsel separate from their regular campaign attorney, which in Washington is the equivalent of a patient getting a second opinion after the first doctor says, "We need to talk." The Ethics Committee, which had closed its Met Gala investigation in July 2025 after AOC paid $2,733 in restitution, announced a preliminary review of the new spending patterns, not a formal investigation, preliminary. But in Washington, preliminary review is the first footstep on a staircase that only goes down. The Fighting Oligarchy tour spending became a formal subject of a Government Accountability Office request, filed by 2 Republican senators, and notably 1 independent, asking for a comprehensive review of campaign travel expenditures that exceed 200% of federal per diem rates. The request cited AOC's filings by name, AOC's 2028 presidential polling, which had shown her as a top 3 contender for the Democratic nomination in early 2025, dropped 9 points in the first post-hearing survey, not because of the scandal, because of the math. "You can run as the people's candidate," a Democratic strategist told Politico, "when your FEC filing reads like a luxury travel blog." A second strategist, speaking anonymously, was blunter. The $27 donor was her superpower. Vance just turned her superpower into her kryptonite. Every time she asks for $27 now, people are going to think 148. That number follows her to 2028. The Fighting Oligarchy brand, which AOC and Sanders had built into a political movement complete with merchandise, a podcast, and a nationwide rally circuit, became toxic overnight. Not because the rallies weren't popular, because the backstage was now visible. And backstage, the private jets, the 5-star hotels, the $150 sushi, looked exactly like the oligarchy the tour claimed to fight. 3 days after the hearing, AOC posted an Instagram story, not a response, not a rebuttal. A photo of her at a community event in the Bronx, serving food at a church pantry. The caption, "This is the work, always has been." It got 2 million likes. It also got 340,000 comments. The top comment with 89,000 likes. How many $27 donations did the flight to this photo op cost? So she didn't post again for 6 days. For AOC, the woman who had built an empire on social media, who posted daily, who had turned Instagram stories into a political instrument, 6 days of silence was an earthquake, and the earthquake had a magnitude 148. Maria Gutierrez sat on the edge of her bed in apartment 4C, 1847 Vice Avenue, the Bronx. Same apartment, same bed, same TV on the dresser that she watched with the volume at 14 because the walls were thin, and Mrs. Dominguez next door worked nights and slept days, and Maria respected sleep because Maria understood what it meant to need it. 6:40 p.m. Still in her home health aid scrubs, the lavender ones, the ones she bought at the uniform store on Westchester Avenue for $22.99 each. 3 for $60, because buying 3 at once saved $8.97, and $8.97 was a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread, and you don't waste $8.97 when you make $38,000 a year. The clip was playing on her phone. She'd seen it 3 times already. She was watching a 4th time because the number was still bouncing around in her head like a ball in a small room. 148. Maria had donated $27 to AOC's campaign monthly. She set it up in January 2024 after AOC posted an Instagram video about housing costs in the Bronx. The rents going up, the landlords not fixing the heat, the the families doubling up in one-bedrooms because one-bedrooms were all they could afford. Maria had watched that video sitting in this bed in these scrubs and thought, she knows. She knows what this is like. $27 a month. That was the amount. She'd chosen it because $27 was what everyone gave. It was the AOC number, the movement number, the we, all in this together number, and $27 was exactly the amount Maria had skipped that month for her daughter's school picture. Isabella's 5th grade photo. $27 for the package. With the wallet-sized prints that the grandparents wanted. Maria had said maybe next year, and Isabella had said okay, in the way children say okay when they know okay means no, but they love their mothers too much to argue. $27, same amount to the penny, 148 of her. That's what Vance said, 148 Maria Gutierrez's. 148 women in lavender scrubs making $38,000 a year, skipping school pictures, buying uniforms 3 at a time to save $8.97 to pay for one night at a hotel she'd have never heard of in a city she'd have never been to. Maria opened her phone, opened the Act Blue app, found the recurring donation, $27 per month. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for Congress. The same 10 seconds Vance had given AOC. The same silence. She pressed cancel. The app asked, "Are you sure?" And Maria, who was sure about very few things in life, not sure about the rent, not sure about the heat, not sure about Isabella's school, not sure about anything except that she loved her daughter and she worked hard, and $27 was $27, Maria was sure about this. If she wants to fight oligarchy, Maria said to the empty apartment, to the thin walls, to Mrs. Dominguez sleeping on the other side, she can start by sleeping at a Holiday Inn. She closed the app, put the phone on the nightstand, went to the kitchen to start dinner. Rice, beans, chicken, same dinner, cooked Sunday, portioned for the week. The dinner of a woman who knew exactly what $27 meant, because $27 was the difference between a school picture and a political donation. And she had chosen the donation, and the donation had bought 1/148th of a hotel room she would never see. Next month, $27 would buy Isabella's picture. Ronnie Castillo sat in his Honda Civic outside Terminal B at LaGuardia Airport, waiting for the next ride to ping. 9:17 p.m. He'd been driving since 11 a.m. 10 hours. His back hurt. The Honda's driver's seat had a dip in the left side, where his weight had worn through the padding over 63,000 miles of rideshare driving. And he kept meaning to buy a seat cushion. But seat cushions cost $30. And $30 was 2 hours of driving after expenses, and 2 hours of driving was 2 hours he could be sleeping. So the seat cushion stayed on the Amazon wish list where things go to die. His phone was propped against the dashboard, a phone mount he bought for $7 at a gas station. The kind with the suction cup that loses suction every 3 days. So he re-sticked it every 3 days, because a $7 mount that needs re-sticking beats a $25 mount that doesn't. The second phone, the lift phone, a cracked iPhone 8D bought from a guy in Jackson Heights for $60, sat in the cup holder, angled so he could see both screens at once. 2 phones, 2 apps. Whoever pinged first got the ride. The Vance clip was playing on the Uber phone, the $53,500 in hotels part. Ronnie was 26, born in Queens, son of a mechanic. His father worked at an auto shop on Northern Boulevard until his back gave out in 2019. And a school cafeteria worker, his mother made $31,000 a year feeding other people's children, and then came home and fed her own. Ronnie had planned to go to community college after high school, but his father's back gave out, and the insurance didn't cover all of the surgery, and someone needed to make money while his father recovered. So Ronnie signed up for Uber the week after graduation and never made it to orientation at LaGuardia Community College. The irony wasn't lost on him. He parked outside LaGuardia Airport every night waiting for rides, next to a community college named LaGuardia that he'd have never attended. He saw the students sometimes, walking to evening classes with backpacks and energy drinks, and he'd think that was supposed to me, but thinking that cost time, and time was rides, and rides were money, and money was the thing that separated thinking from doing. He made $38,000 a year before expenses. After gas, insurance, car payment, maintenance, the self-employment tax that nobody tells you about until April, after all of it, the real hourly rate was about $14, sometimes $12 on bad days, after a flat tire or a canceled surge, $9. He decalculated it once sitting in this same spot during a $9 an hour was less than the minimum wage. He was running a business, 2 phones, 2 apps, 63,000 miles, and making less than the minimum wage that AOC kept saying should be $22. Ronnie had never stayed at a hotel, not once. Not for vacation, he didn't take vacations, not for a wedding. When his sister got married in New Jersey last October, he damn driven home at 2 a.m. because the Holiday Inn was $139 a night, and $139 was 3 days of groceries. He driven the New Jersey Turnpike at 2:00 a.m., eyes burning, back aching, because a hotel room cost more than he could justify when the car had a reclining seat, and the reclining seat was free. Not for a birthday, not for New Year's, not for anything. The closest he come to a hotel was sleeping in the Honda in the LaGuardia cell phone lot during a double shift, reclined as far as the seat would go. Which wasn't far, because Hondas are not designed for sleeping, and neither are 2 6-year-olds with bad backs inherited from their fathers. $53,500 on hotels. Ronnie did the math the way Ronnie did all math quickly, roughly. The math of a man who calculates tips and gas and tolls in his head 60 times a day. $53,500 divided by his annual income of $38,000. That was 1.4 years of his life. 1.4 years of 1 0-hour days. And LaGuardia cell phone lots, and $7 phone mounts, and the Amazon wish list where seat cushions go to die. He donated $27 once. January 2024. AOC had posted an Instagram video about housing costs in Queens, the rents, the landlords, the squeeze. Ronnie had watched it in the LaGuardia cell phone lot between rides and thought, she gets it. He opened Act Blue, typed in the numbers from his debit card. Numbers he knew by heart the way Vance said people know them by heart, because you type those numbers for rent and electric and phone and insurance, and you don't forget numbers you type that often. $27 one time. He never set up recurring. He couldn't afford recurring. 148 of me, Ronnie said to the dashboard. 148 guys sitting in their cars at LaGuardia. One night, one hotel. A ride pinged. LaGuardia to Midtown. He accepted, started driving. The route took him down the Grand Central Parkway, past the interchange, past the billboards. One billboard, left side, an AOC ad from the last campaign cycle, faded. The colors washed by a year of sun and rain, but still legible. A photo of AOC, that same smile, and 2 words in bold, for the people. Ronnie looked at the billboard, looked at the road, looked at the fare estimate on his screen. $34 before Uber's cut, which meant $22 in his pocket, which meant about $14 after gas, which was almost enough for a seat cushion, but not quite. He drove past the billboard. She called him an oligarch. He pulled out her hotel bills. She said she fights for the working class. He asked how many working people paid for one night at the Langham Huntington. She flew private to fight oligarchy. He drove a gray Chevy Malibu to win a Senate seat. She ate 14 courses of sushi. He ate a McChicken with a water cup, because water cups are free. God bless Maria Gutierrez, who canceled a $27 donation so her daughter could finally have a school picture. God bless Ronnie Castillo, who has never stayed in a hotel and drives past a billboard that says, for the people every night on his way to a cell phone lot at LaGuardia. And God bless every $27 donor who opened their phone, typed in their credit card numbers, and trusted that their money was going to the fight. Because it wasn't. It was going to the Langham Huntington, $53,500 in luxury hotels. $18,725 to a medical specialist, filed as consulting. $23,000 in venue rentals at a concert arena. $150 sushi. $550,000 in private jets. And 148 people. 148 Maria Gutierrezes. 148 Ronnie Castillos. 148 Americans who work double shifts and skip school pictures and sleep in their cars behind every hotel receipt. The little guy is the $27 donor, and she spent their money on a hotel they can't afford to visit. 148 people. One night. Do the math.